everyone, I welcome you to the CEC lecture series. I'm Nupur Chawla, teaching English literature at Maitree College, Delhi University. And this is the second part of the lecture, which is titled American Dream by Edward Albee. Now, this lecture is part of the ongoing series on English drama, and it is a continuation of our discussion on the play, which is titled The American Dream by the American playwright Edward Albee. It was written in 1959 and produced first in 1961. So essentially, we see that it's a play which belongs to the late 20th century, and that is the context which it examines. In the previous lecture, we had taken a look at the background of the play, the playwright, and broadly what is it that this text engages with, right? Now, this lecture, I would like to begin with, discussing the concept of, or the word that is the American dream. Now, you would notice that, a lot of American literature which you read, and even for that matter in popular media, till date, there's a reference to American dream. Now, what exactly, with a capital A and a capital D, now what exactly is the American dream, right? Now, it is actually the national ethos of the United States of America, right? That is what is, encapsulated in this phrase, the American dream. It's a national ethos. It's a set of ideals, including representative democracy, rights, liberty, and equality, right? So the moment we use this term, all these ideas are brought to the fore, right? All those ideals which come to define America, the country, that is the democracy, rights, liberty, equality, right? Also, another aspect of the American dream is that when we use the term, we mean that, in this context, freedom is interpreted as the opportunity for individual prosperity and success, right? So now, what is this dream, right? It's while on the one hand, it's a set of value system, American value system, but at the same time, a very important part of this value system is their interpretation of freedom, right? So freedom is seen as an opportunity for the individual prosperity and success. Now, what is to be noted is individual prosperity and success, right? So it was a very individual-centered idea in a very individual-centered society. And of course, we know that that is what is the crux of capitalism as well, right? As against socialism. So it's not, so there's no kind of there is no collectivism in that sense. Every person, every individual does their own bit to get the prosperity that they desire and to get the success that they desire. So a freedom to do this is also part of the American dream. A third aspect of the concept is upward social mobility, which is achieved through hard work in a capitalist society, right? So the moment we say that the person is, engaging with the American dream, we also we mean not just democracy and rights and ethos, which define Americans. We not just mean a freedom to freedom and opportunity for individual success, but we also mean some kind of upward social mobility, right, which is achieved through hard work in a capitalist society. So all these elements are, part of the concept. Now, you see, the term was actually coined by James Truslow in 1931. And let's see, how does he define the word American dream? He says, and I quote, "Life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity for each according to ability or achievement, regardless of social class or circumstances of birth." Now, this was James Truslow Adams, his visualization of the American dream in 1931. He says that this is what defines the Americans. That is, life should be better and richer for everybody, with opportunity for each individual, according to their ability or achievement, regardless of their class or circumstance of birth. Now, you see, even as this idea or this vision does, have some room for equality, or seems to be premised, in fact, on equality, but is it really that? The moment you talk about opportunity, the moment you talk about individual success, one really wonders that is it possible to gain that in a society that continues to be equal, right? Because society cannot have something to offer for everyone, right? So if there's individual success, if individual is the center, then of course the focus remains on that person's advancement and not everybody's advancement taken together. So there's some kind of one can say an irony that we notice in what James Truslow Adams said in 1931, right? So we say that therefore the American dream was a source, and in fact it is considered to be such, right? It was a source of individualism, materialistic ethos, commercialism, and consumerism, right? All these value systems were encouraged under the concept of the American dream. Materialistic ethos, why? Because of course, advancement or success was measured in material terms, right? People would be wanting money in order to feel that they are doing enough. And of course, commercialism and consumerism also contributed to this ethos of success and advancement, right? So success and advancement were, let's say, the byproducts, or considered to be the byproducts of commercialism and consumerism, right? So that's how the American dream spells all these value systems. Now, this is exactly what Edward Albee punctures in this play. This inflated American dream. This American dream which talks about success, advancement, freedom, and the rest, right? But is it really it? That is a question which Albee seems to be asking, right? Now, if you look at the characters in the play, as I had told you that, that there is some kind of, we kind of see a minimalism practiced by Albee. If you see the first character, her name is Mommy, and she's a domineering American housewife. Second character is Daddy. He's a rich husband working in corporate. Third character is Grandma, who is Mommy's mother. And fourth one is Mrs. Barker, who's the president of the Women's Club. And the fifth and the last character is the young man. So, what do we see? That, these characters have very generic names. Mommy, Daddy, Grandma. Are they individual names? No, right? One can see that just in the naming of the characters as well, the playwright is somewhat registering a kind of a protest to individualism, right? So individualism, which was proving, according to Albee, kind of not very productive, now was somewhat deliberately taken away in his characters in the play by when he gives them the generic names associated with their roles or with their social roles, for that matter, right? Okay, now let's look at, before we discuss the plot, I would like all of you to also once again take a look at yet another quote by Edward Albee about the text. It's a slightly longish one, but let's see. He says that it was my intention to offend as well as amuse and entertain. So in this quotation, he is discussing what his aim was in writing the play. It was my intent to offend as well as amuse and entertain. Is it nihilist, immoral, or defeatist? Well, to that, let me answer that the American Dream, which is the play, is a picture of our time, as I see it, of course. So every honest work is a personal, private yawl, a statement of one individual's pleasure or pain. But I hope that the play American Dream is something more than that. I hope that it transcends the personal and the private and has something to do with the anguish of us all. So you see, two important points Albee makes in this somewhat longish statement. First, he talks about his intention in the play, which is to offend. Offend whom? Those who have been rendered comfortable, those who have stopped questioning. So he wants to shake them out of their complacency to make them re-examine the surroundings, right? Next, what he does is that he also questions that he says that yes, even as this play is supposed to be the picture of the times, and that picture is of course told by me, and therefore it will have that individual flavor to it. But then he says, I want the play to transcend that. Let it not be read as a statement of what Edward Albee thinks about the American context, and instead it should transcend the personal, as he says, and the private, and it must have something to do with the anguish of us all. So very clearly Albee had in mind the general condition without just forcing his opinion on the circumstance, right? Now coming to the plot of the play. Now you see there are 4 or 5 important things that happen during the course of the play, and which then will further help us structure our discussion about the play better. So the first thing we say is that it concerns a married couple and the elderly mother. So when the play opens, you see mommy and daddy have a conversation, and after a while the grandmother or the elderly mother enters, who's called as the grandma, right? Now the play opens with the 3 of them discussing about mommy's day, right? Yet another character who's a member of the community, Mrs. Barker, she enters the scene and the dialogue continues between the 4 of them, right? Now apparently grandma knows why Mrs. Baker has been asked to come by, and she explains to her that mommy and daddy had adopted a son from her many years previously, right? So because mother and daddy had adopted a son some time back, they had invited Mrs. Baker for and just asked them to spend some time with them because they had adopted that child from her. Right? Now, as the parents had objected to the child's actions, they mutilated it as punishment, eventually killing it. Right? So we see that this play then also becomes a reflection on the theme or the issue of adoption. So when the parents adopted that child, they mistreated the child, punished it no end. Eventually, the child dies, right? So what do we do as humans to our fellow humans? What is the psyche behind such a behavior, where you are taking responsibility of a child who doesn't have parents, but then ultimately because you yourself are not ready, you yourselves are not, aware enough, and you end up mistreating the child, and the child eventually is killed, right? So the play then also makes us rethink about such human actions as well, human/inhuman, right? Next, we see in the play that, of course, all the 4 characters are on scene, but after Mrs. Barker exits, The last character comes in, that is a young man. He appears at the door looking for work, right? Now, this young man is dubbed by grandma as the American dream, right? She sees him as a twin of mommy and daddy's first child, right? And as the first child was mutilated, the young man also suffered pain and had been left an empty shell of a man, right? So grandma then draws this connection between the hollowness, the vacuity of the young man with the mutilated, body of the child, right? The child that was adopted and of course never taken care of. Now, what is quite interesting is that the young man is introduced into the family as a replacement for the original child, right? And the play then finally ends with mommy and daddy celebrating the young man's arrival with grandma already forgotten. So broadly speaking, these are some of the plot points in the play. So you might think that there's not a lot of substantial, unique action which is going on in the play, and that is why right at the outset I made it clear that how this play then engages with the domestic American reality. Yeah, so that becomes the point of engagement for Albee. So he in fact examines the question of, or the idea of, the American dream vis-a-vis the everyday and almost mundane life which a lot of Americans lead. So that is the space of operation for Albee, right? That is the section which he chooses to write about. Okay, now we see in the play the domestic operation of the American dream, right? See what the mother says. The mother says, and I quote, "We were very poor, but then I married you, Daddy, and now we are very rich," unquote. So you see, we notice a kind of a obsession with money. And as we had discussed, that a part of the American dream is what? Individual success and advancement. So the mother is quite conscious of the fact that there was a lack of money initially, but then when she marries this well-off man, now she feels that she is quite rich, right? So we see that upward mobility, but within the domestic framework, right? So again, exploring the American dream through, with a lens that is, directed towards the domestic life. So, we notice that how the idea of success, advancement, etc. does not only lie in companies, in these big, corporates, businesses, etc., but the idea of advancement, success, materiality, also, or not materiality, but materialism, are equally important, applicable, relevant to the domestic operations as well, right? So we see that along with this, while on the one hand there is this, streak for success, at the same time, at what cost? At the cost of their own uniqueness, at the cost of their own humanity, right? And hence, as I was just now telling you a while back, that the character names then are also as generic, right? Now, we notice that there is an ambition for upward mobility not only in mother, but also she makes an observation about the daddy as well, about man, about her husband as well, right? So it's like everybody is motivated by the same desire. Now let's see what she says. She says, all his life, Daddy has wanted to be a United States Senator. Now you see, what we notice here is that the measure of success is quite different, and it varies from one person to the other. Now for mother, success meant money, for Daddy, success meant power. He wanted to be a United States Senator all his life. Now look at the dream that he harbors. But the commonality remains that everyone has a dream. Everyone in the American society is aspiring for, is striving for something better, right? Next, we notice that, the American dream is visualized as the young man. And this is also quite interesting, right? This abstract concept or this value system or this ethos is then projected, or let's say embodied, in the young man. So young man seems to be the personification, one can say, of the American dream in the play. So his physical features, his life conditions, his emotions, his actions, his gestures, all of that then come together to build a perspective on what exactly is the American dream, right? Now let's very quickly take a look at some of these descriptions of the young man who comes in the house and is tagged as the American dream by Grandma. Now she says that, Grandma says on page 107, "You do not sound very enthusiastic," unquote. At another place, the narrator says, "Clean-cut Midwest farm boy type, almost insultingly good-looking in a typically American way. Good profile, straight nose, wonderful smile," unquote. Now you see, these two statements say a lot about the American dream. The first one is, you don't sound very enthusiastic, right? So which means what? That so when the person, that is young man, who is a symbolic representation of the American dream, and Grandma makes this observation that you don't sound very enthusiastic, itself tells us that how the American dream has somewhat begun to lose its sheen, right? It seems to be, losing the relevance that it perhaps initially had, right? And then, even before we talk about this loss, but it's quite interesting to see that, how is this character of young man created, who then was, designed to stand for the American dream. He is chiseled, right? He is young. He's clean cut. And as the, playwright says, insultingly good looking in a typically American way, right? So he then, the young man with all these good or positive features, tell us that how part of the American dream also is to appear as competent as you actually are, right? So everything is supposed to be ideal, in place, beautiful, measured, etc. But then, with so much of detail, is there a depth to them? Not really, right? Now, the young man, you see, not only in the descriptions of the young man by the others, but he himself also, says this. He talks about his own condition. And let's see what he says. He says, "As I told you, I am incomplete. I can feel nothing. And so here I am as you see me. I am but this, what you see me, and it will always be," unquote. So now what is the young man saying? That I am incomplete and I can feel nothing. So again, which means what? Now, because young man is the personification of the American dream. So which means what? That it is the dream itself that's incomplete. I can feel nothing means what? That the dream seems to have, at some in some instances, a suffocating impact as well, because he says that I can feel nothing. It benumbs you. And so here I am as you see me. I am but this, what you see, and it will always be, right? So the American dream, what it was visualized as, and what the truth is, how it actually unfolds or unfolded, and how it is impacting day-to-day lives, that is something which Albee somewhat opens up for examination in this play, right? Now, apart from this, which is an examination of the American domestic condition, examination of the American dream, despite all this serious business, there are also quite a few light-hearted moments in the text, right? Perhaps one can say that they were meant to be a reprieve from a high dose of reality, as one can say, by Edward Albee. So what are these, moments of humor? Grandma says at one place, Mommy and Daddy had never been blessed with anything very much like their own bundle of joy. Now, basically over here, what she means is a bundle of joy and not a bumble of joy, right? So, of course, this causes a bit of humor and a laughter with this kind of a slip that she has. And here, of course, she's talking about the fact that how Mommy and Daddy were childless couple, and they did not really have their own bundle of joy or their own child, right? But as this slice of reality is given to us by Albee, punctuated by these moments of light-hearted humor, the ending of the play is quite hopeful, right? We see that the mother says that you must learn to count. We are a wealthy family and you must learn to count. At another place she says, and we will drink to celebrate, to satisfaction. Who says you cannot get satisfaction these days, unquote. So you see, there's a very beautiful observation that you might make here. On the one hand, she says that you must learn to count. We are a wealthy family and you must learn to count. Count what? Count money? Count your blessings? Or what? So it seems to be the case that not all is really great, but one is choosing to remain optimistic. And likewise, even in the other quotation, when she says that who says that you cannot get satisfaction these days? So which means what? That there is a reference that these times are not satisfactory, but still they celebrate, right? So that's how Edward Albee captures the essence of the times and gives us a slice of the American reality through this play. Thank you.